How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. I don't know where you're listening. I don't know if this is a podcast somewhere or if you are watching me on YouTube, but wherever you are, it's greatly appreciated. My name is Mike Gallant, and I'm hosting this new podcast. What is the title of it? I don't know. I sort of just started this idea a couple of days ago, and the big problem I always have is that I have an idea and then I just go do it as fast as humanly possible before the idea can convince me not to do it anymore. Quite often, I can talk myself out of wanting to do something if I give it enough time. So I figured I just had this idea for a very brief moment, and I figured, you know what? Let's just go and start doing this. Just see what happens. Don't have a strong mandate. Don't have a particular point of view, but let's just start this and see what happens. So anyway, this is the podcast. This is a podcast I'm hosting. I used to do a podcast probably about 10, 12 years ago, and it was a movie review podcast. And some of those episodes actually did very well. This won't be an exclusive movie reviewing podcast, although there probably will be movie reviews, and I'm actually going to talk about a movie in a little bit on this one, this pilot episode. But what this podcast I think is going to be, at least I'm going to do my best, is that this will be a film-related podcast about not only the local scene here in Toronto and the greater GTA, and I would say also expanded into the Canadian film industry, but I would say the film industry as a whole as well. As someone who's been working pretty much full-time in the film industry for almost a decade, maybe about 8 years exclusively, and a few years before that, sort of part-time, I thought, well, not only that, but I have these conversations with people all the time at different networking events and just different screenings and stuff that's going on around the city and other film festivals. And I thought, you know what, why don't we bottle all of these conversations, and not only conversations, but anxieties and concerns we have, and let's talk about it openly on the internet, which is a great place because, you know, if there's one thing everyone has been clamoring for, is for another podcast to come out. And here you go. I've delivered. I'm satiating this hunger you probably have because there's not enough podcasts out there. So I'm going to add another one onto the heap. So I don't even have a title for this podcast. Probably by the time you're hearing this, I have a title, I would hope, by that point. But right now, I don't have a title. That's how sort of haphazard this whole idea is. I have my monitor onto the side of the camera. And for people who are just listening through audio, you don't give a crap about this side. But I'm looking on the monitor and it's like, I don't even know if I'm framing this right. I don't know if this is the type of background I'm supposed to have, but whatever. I'm going to go into this almost as blind as I possibly can. I don't even know if this mic is a good enough mic to use for this, but who cares? All right, enough about that. So not only is this podcast about, I would say, film news a little bit and film reviews, it's also a way to get to know local talent. And I think local talent is sort of a crappy word to use. I would say there are extremely talented, some pretty well-known artists, not only around Toronto, but the GTA as a whole. And they're doing great things out there. And I'm not just talking about actors, I'm also including producers, directors, writers, cinematographers, composers. I know a bunch of them out there. And I think this can also be a good platform to include them into the conversations and help you guys out there also know what's going on out there in this corner of the film industry. Now, this corner of the film industry, and I'm going to talk specifically about sort of Southern Ontario, Toronto, You have to include Hamilton as a big part of that. Hamilton has become this big offshoot of Toronto and the GTA film industry that's going on there. And Hamilton has sort of built up its own satellite universe of, they have their own studios, a lot of directors, cinematographers, and general tradespeople, whether it's arts, props, wardrobe, you name it. A lot of them live and work out of there as well. And there's a lot of TV shows and MOWs and even feature films, horror, sci-fi, drama, telefilm movies. A lot of them get shot in Hamilton or the surrounding area. And a lot of that also has to do with tax credits, but we'll get to that either later on this or at another time. But overall, I think it's important that we highlight and sort of uplift the network that exists here, because I think the worst Canadian trait that many of us have is humility. And as great of a virtue as it is to have as a person and as an artist, a lot of us become artists because we are so humble and we just don't feel so comfortable in our own skin that we have to, what's the right word? We sort of have to express ourselves through our art and not necessarily through communication and connecting with people. We're a lot more comfortable, showing people what we can do rather than telling them. And as great as a human trait as that can be, it also shoots you in the foot, because at the end of the day, 80% of business is marketing, right? If you have a product and no one knows what it is and no one knows you, it might as well not exist. And that's not to say, obviously, there are artistic expressions and things that need to be done out there, no matter what the cost is, or more importantly, what the ROI is. We need art. Everywhere needs art. Every single civilization that's ever existed has needed art. And we as a people are no different. But that said, I'm also interested in the commercial viability of art, specifically in the film industry. Now, that's not to say we can't make great products that are both artistically fulfilling and just straight up entertaining for audiences, which is a great place, I think, to live in. There are a lot of art house directors out there that are comfortable sort of operating on the off the beaten path, let's say. And then there are others that work exclusively in commercial products and direct MOWs and write scripts for MOWs or commercials or ad agencies, right? And just they're very comfortable with giving audiences exactly what they want and what they're looking for. Obviously, I think a lot of filmmakers that want to be successful want to live somewhere in the middle. Make something that feels new and fresh and authentic, but at the same time accessible and isn't alienating your audiences from enjoying this story that you're trying to tell. It doesn't go over their heads and make it difficult for them to, either want to spend the 90 minutes to sit down and enjoy it in streaming, or best case, going to the movie theater, dropping $10, $20, $30 if you're including a concession on a ticket to watch your movie with a crowd somewhere at a movie theater, which is, I think, the pinnacle and still the ultimate desire for most filmmakers. I personally believe that. There are a lot of people out there that are very comfortable now living in the streaming world, and I think there's a lot of merit to that. I think there's a lot of hate on streaming for how easy it's made it for people to just enjoy any movie out there, and I can understand the resistance to that. I saw recently, I think yesterday, a map of the U.S. with all the states and all the counties, and how few counties in the U.S. specifically actually have movie theaters. And I think that's an important thing to remember. A lot of people that have these opinions about wanting to save movie theaters, which I think is a completely admirable desire to have, also have to remember that a lot of places don't have movie theaters. Not only do they not have a chain, but they might have a small town, old school theater, but even those aren't going to have, it's not going to be a multiplex. It might be one theater or two theater screens if you're lucky. And then, you just have to hedge your bets on what's ever playing during that 2-picture or 1-picture run that movie theater is doing. I love movie theaters. I always love going to the movies. Before I had kids, I would be going probably at least once a week. And I think back now through the 2010s of just the absolute nothing movies that I shelled out money to go see with, she was probably my wife at that point, but even before when we were dating, we would just see everything. And I don't know why. It was just, I guess, something to do. And maybe it was a little more affordable back then. I don't know. But again, it might have just been something to do. And 10 years ago, streaming wasn't what it is now. Now we have 4K. I have surround sound. I have a surround sound with a subwoofer. So every bullet zips by your head. Every grenade explosion rumbles under your feet. It's almost as good as being in the movie theater, at least with the sound. Now, granted, like I said, I have small kids. The amount of opportunities I actually get to fully enjoy and blow out those speakers is few and far between. So that again, I enjoyed streaming, but at the same time, I live in a house with kids who sleep at night, and even my wife doesn't enjoy blowing out the speakers the way that I do. So any opportunity I can get to go see something in a theater is really enjoyable to me. Now I know you're asking why are you going on this side rant about? And to be honest, I don't really know. Again, this is going back to I don't really know what this thing is, so I'm just feeling it out. But that said, stuff like that, I just want to give you a little background on where my perspective comes from. I'm a filmmaker myself. I've made now 3 feature films, 2 of which are traditional narratives, and then 1 is actually a anthology film made up of 5 short films that I made over about 12 years and sort of concocted a way to thematically tie them all together to be this 175-minute film that I could actually get in front of audiences on Tubi and Amazon Prime and several other streaming services. I think we're on Hoopla now too, which I didn't even know existed until a couple of months ago. So I use now shorts don't really have a great access to audiences. Maybe if you win something at a festival or it is included in something overall or you're even nominated for an Oscar, best case scenario for your short. I've found over the 20 years that I've been making shorts that there's just not a strong way to get them in front of audiences in any meaningful form. I've personally found. So a friend of mine gave me a great idea. Put it together as an anthology, pitch that to Film Hub, have them then pitch it to Tubi and all these different platforms, because these platforms, for those who don't know, a lot of these platforms, these streaming platforms that are aggregated from sites like Film Hub and Indie Rights and different sites such as that, and through other sales agents, they have a time minimum. So you can't just upload a 10-minute short film and Tubi's going to take it. They can't monetize it. They want the ad dollars, right? They want ad breaks in order to make money and to make any of it worthwhile, which is completely understandable. That's their business model. So to take advantage of that, I put together an anthology film, an anthology series that were sort of loosely connected, and it's called Last Known Backup, and it's available on Tubi, Amazon Prime, Hoopla, and a few other streaming sites. I think it's available now in about 13 countries on Apple TV for rent or buy, rent or purchase. So feel free to check it out. So that's my most recent feature that's out there as well. I had a previous feature film that I shot about 10 years ago called The Duchess of Cancun that was shot on location in Mexico, in Cancun, Mexico. And so I think we flew down about 8 people, 4 cast, and 4 crew. Elizabeth, now Gallant, at the time Lagunas, myself, Scotty Taylor, and Tian Ta. Scotty Taylor was our audio engineer, and Tian Ta was our cinematographer. So he brought the gear, he shot the film, and then we brought down 4 cast: Andrew Chapman, Megan Hughes-Jones, Lauren Denkers, and Neil Affleck. So those were Canadian actors that we brought down. Once we were in Mexico, we actually hired local talent, not only local actors and actresses, but local crew. So I hired a fixer with my Riviera Maya Films. Rene Blanco was our producer, and he was incredible. He got us all the permits. He got us into several hotels for free. We got to shoot on grounds of actually pretty well-known hotels, and they basically paid us to be there. They provided us security, food, any room we wanted. We could go anywhere on the grounds unobstructed. And to get that kind of, access up here in Toronto, you would have to pay tens of thousands of dollars. So we were extremely fortunate on that end. And then we brought in someone from Mexico City, a known actress. Her name is Charlene Gonzalez. And she's well known in sort of the Mexico... I guess she's done a few telenovelas. But yes, she's pretty well known in Mexico as an actress there. So we flew her in from Mexico City, and she was incredible. The cast overall was incredible. It was a really great experience. I shot there for 9 days. And it was just me. It was me producing it. The people we had with us were incredible. Our actors killed it every scene. And at the time, we shot on a camera called the A7S Mark II, which was pretty revolutionary at the time. It was one of the first mirrorless cameras, like DSLR cameras, that could shoot 4K. And I had been on so many shoots previously before that because I had a career sort of as an event videographer. And I got to the point where, we were using these great cameras. We were shooting 4K. It was coming out looking like cinema. And I just said to my friend Tian, we should just go shoot a movie like this. I don't know why we're sitting around wasting our time. And so that's exactly what we did. And since then, the movie was picked up, I believe, in 2017, maybe 16. And then it sort of the wheels started turning for acquisitions and sales in different countries. I think it took a few years to get going, but 2018, I guess, is the official release date. I don't know what country that actually refers to. But we were on Amazon for a while, which was amazing. Amazon Prime, especially in its early days. But back then, it was actually a lot more friendlier to filmmakers than it is now, or independent filmmakers. And then I believe it was 2021 we got on Tubi, and that sort of opened the floodgates. And a lot of our revenue came from that. And unfortunately, I really wish I understood the power of Tubi at that time. Tubi, even now, is sort of seen as this lower tier streaming service. A, because it's free, and B, it feels like they take anything, which is kind of true. But at the same time, because it's free, it's AVOD, which is ad-based video on demand, and not subscription-based or TVOD. I forget what TVOD means. Anyway, because it's ad-based and it's free, a lot more people have access to it. And we always forget, a lot of people don't have the money or want to spend the money on a Netflix or Amazon subscription. So a lot of people turn to Tubi and actually turn out those numbers pretty well. So there's a lot of filmmakers that have made a lot of money just on Tubi alone. I think it's sort of tapered off in the past couple of years. And like I said, I regret sort of not recognizing the rise of Tubi in the early ages and sort of being on that rise when it was happening. I think it's sort of peaked out and the gold rush is sort of over. So our ability to take advantage of it financially is a lot more difficult than it was. But yes, the film has still been on Tubi for at least 4 or 5 years now. And according to my sales agent, it seems to still keep up steam. We'll see what happened in this last quarter. Anyway, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but again, that's sort of where I'm at with those projects. And then my most recent project is called Backpay, which is my new feature film. It's not out yet. It's not released. It's not even fully finished. It's almost finished. It's a thriller drama that I starred in. And again, I don't consider myself an actor on any real level. I did acting as a kid, and I felt that being a director for so long, and more importantly, being an editor, I've sort of learned acting from watching other people and sort of working with actors. Not only working with them, but also shaping their performances in the edit. Because when you start doing that, you catch a lot of what happens on screen, even more so than actors probably realize. And you understand what looks like lying and what looks like commitment. You know, that's a big thing I think performers need to understand. Help buy us into the moment. Now, the great actors, especially union actors, most takes are the same. Most takes are believable. They know their lines. Their diction is great. Their commitment to the moment is great. All that stuff. Eye contact, all that stuff. But, you know, at the levels that we're at, you'll hopefully only work with that, but then at the same time you get the in-betweens, where not every take is great. Or, you know, memorization becomes a bit of a problem. But that can also depend on what's going on in the production either, if you're creating an environment for your actors to succeed. I would definitely consider myself, my talent, definitely in the middle, maybe the lower tier. Not that I think I'm a bad actor. You know, I objectively, not only was I acting, but I was directing and editing myself. And there's literally nothing more painful in the world than going back and editing a performance that you have to turn into gold, especially when there are takes that are less than favorable, which I had many. I think in the film overall, I did good. I would dare say great. I was surrounded by incredible actors who just made me better. So I attribute most of my performance to their ability to bring that out in me. And I will also give myself credit in that we pushed each other, right? As a director, I was able to sort of push them, and then in turn, they pushed back on me because I was basically in almost every scene. So, I give them a lot of credit for that. And because I've worked with so many actors for so many years, I sort of had my pick of the litter in terms of the talent out there, and I was incredibly lucky with who I got in this film to play the different roles and to act, not only play the different roles, but for me to act off of. So that's Backpay. And Backpay is independently produced by me, as well as our cinematographer, Chris Moresby, who contributed a lot to the film. Made it look incredible. We got to shoot on anamorphic lenses, shot on Alexa 35, which is what they shoot Marvel stuff on these days. Oh my God, I'm almost done here. I was going to try to keep these podcasts to about 30 minutes long, and I can't believe I'm already at 25 minutes. This is crazy. So anyway, Backpay is being worked on, and hopefully it's going to come out soon. There are conversations with different sales agents, people who are interested, but we'll just see what happens. That said, that's another reason I wanted this podcast to exist. I need to get myself in front of audiences. I need to create audiences. I need to see who's out there and who's interested in film. Not only are you interested in film, but I got to get you to watch my stuff. And in turn, I want to know what's out there. And I want to use this podcast, this platform, to not only talk about myself and the stuff I'm working on and thinking about and whatever, but I also, my goal is to start interviewing talent that I know around here. And maybe talent I don't know who want to reach out and be a part of this as well. Because like I said, if there's anything this world needs is more interviewing podcasts, right? More podcasts about interviewing other people. I think a lot of comedians have great platforms to sort of promote each other, and they can put clips and stuff together. I want to do that for actors, actresses, producers, writers, like I said, cinematographers, composers. I want to create this network and use this platform for that. I know this hasn't been the most entertaining 30 minutes of your life, but I think I'll wrap it up there as the first podcast. So the next episode will likely be next week. I might even try and do this bi-weekly, maybe bank a few. But overall, I'm going to try and do one of these once a week. And hopefully you guys will find this entertaining, informative, and enjoyable. Thanks for listening.